So I wanted to share something that I'm doing new with my grading system this year. I'm calling it a meta portfolio. I've experimented with lots of different ways of students tracking their grades, of me tracking their grades, of students tracking their work, of me tracking their work, trying to create public products that they can be proud of, portfolios, etc. And none of them have really done more than allow me to just feel have a false sense of their pride around their work. Because they made a website, they're suddenly more proud of it, or it's more public, or because I'm doing some fancy standards-based grading on the back end, they are suddenly more aware of their work from a metacognitive perspective. They're reflecting more, etc. And I've really found that via student survey, none of them seem to be working. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to, first off, push aside any fancy technology and pick a piece of technology that was extremely simple at keeping track of student work that they could leverage and they could have as an artifact, a portfolio. Then I wanted to figure out a way to track their grades in a standards-based fashion, but not in a way that constantly uploaded them to our public gradebook. More in a way where they kept track of their grades and I keep a paper record on the back end, and all of this happens in their one portfolio. It's a place for them to track their work, and it's a place for them to track their grades, ultimately leading to meta-reflection on their work and also archiving and curating of their work. So let me show you what I'm doing this year and I'll walk you through the process. Okay. So this is our class website. At the very beginning of the year, when students click on resources, I had them go to this link here that says grades. When they click on this link here, it asks them to make a copy of grades. And you're able of their biology grade tracking sheet. So this is a template that I made for students. And let me show you how I did that first before we even go on. So I'm going to go into my drive here, and I'm going to go to biology. And you will see here that it says biology grade tracking. So what I did is I made this document, and it's got 3 subfolders. The first one says quiz tracking. The second one says activity tracking, and the third one says reading tracking. So these are the 3 things that I grade for students. I also have a paper copy of this to keep track of it. Okay. Under quiz tracking, you will notice that it doesn't say individual quizzes, it has their individual standards, starting with experimental design and ending here with synthesis, or their class synthesis. Characteristics of life, evolution, microbiology, cellular respiration. These are their standards. So students will take quizzes frequently. Those quizzes will be tagged with different standards, and their score will be out of 10. When I hand those back, I will record them in my paper gradebook, but they will record them in this spreadsheet. So if they got a 10, it's going to show up in green. If they got a 9, it's going to show up in green. If they got an 8, it's going to show up in yellow. If they got a 7, it's going to show up in yellow. If they got a 6, it's going to show up in red. And if they got a 5, it's going to show up in red. And they can't get any lower because a 5 out of 10 or a 0 out of 10 are both in the category of F. You see there's a first attempt and a second attempt. If they got a 9, it's recording their highest grade here. If they got a 7, it's recording their highest grade here. If they got a 9, now it's recording the highest grade here. So by the end of the year, students have this color-coded region where they can look and they can reflect metacognitively on those standards for which they have yellows and reds. They also can think strategically about things they want to reassess on. Twice a quarter, I will upload their bulk grade. I won't upload each standard, I'll upload their bulk grade. So they are responsible for keeping track of this, and I'm keeping track of it on the background. Notice that it's not auto-generating a grade either. It's just outputting their highest score on each standard, forcing reflection, de-emphasizing, summarizing, and averaging these grades together. So this is one thing that they grade on, and I'll show you an example of that in a moment from a student's. Then they have their activities. Okay? If you notice here, I have activity, public link, and score. So on our class website, whenever we do an activity, I push out these slides. The slides are a lab template. Again, I have them make a copy of it. Once they make a copy, they then complete this with their group. So I'm using the Google Slides as a lab reporting mechanism. They're putting their observations, they're putting their images, they're putting a summary, the rubrics built in. So they're doing this with their group. I'm grading it here. They are keeping it curated by going, boom, they grab the shareable link, they go here, they put the activity title, habitat, boom, and they enter their score here. Okay. So they are going to keep a running list of these as they go through the year. Now, unlike a Google folder, everything here is in one space with their score as well for them to reflect. The last thing that I grade for students is readings. So every Friday, I give students something to read, some article that I curate. And I don't pick them at the beginning because biology is always changing. So I push out the article to them in our homework Moodle site. They take the title of the article, they put the link to the article, and then they fill out this summary that I've pre-populated so that I know they're reflecting the way I want them to reflect in building good writing skills. This article was about, they are to insert one general sentence about the article, specifically this article. They're to insert 2 more sentences that describes it in more detail. I really understood. Insert 1 sentence that discusses something they found easy to grasp, something they struggled to understand, and questions they still have. They do this about every article. It is there. So let me show you what this looks like on the back end if I find an actual students now that we are a couple weeks into the year. So I'm going to pull up, let's pull up Iris. Okay. So I have Iris this year. Okay. We have not done any quizzes yet, so Iris has not reported any quizzes in this portion of her tracking. But in her activity tracking here, you see that we have done 3 activities. We've done a habitat activity. Here's a link to Iris's. A betta fish activity. There's a link. And we're working currently on a blood pressure activity. There's her link. She went through and made these hyperlinks. If I look at it, you can tell that I went through and I graded her betta fish activity. Because down here in the rubric slide, you see I have a grade, 2 out of 2, and I talk about how this is a really good activity that she did. Okay. Under reading tracking, here are the readings that we've done so far. One about nanobots. Here is the link. Another one about life. Here is her summary. Okay. She did not do this middle one, and you see she got a 2 here, a 0 on that, and a 2 there. Let's go and look at somebody else's that might be organized a little bit differently so that you see. Nothing for the quiz tracking. For the activity tracking, here are the 2 links. She has not added her scores yet. That's up to her to understand her grade. And the reading, there's the first reading, a link to it, summary. Second reading, a link to it, summary. And the third reading, a link to it, and a summary. You can imagine by the end of the year, students will have links to and summaries of all the readings, almost building a big, big library of their responses. So for Jillian here, at the end of the year, she will have 1 portfolio. This portfolio is just a Google Sheet. This Google Sheet will contain how she's done tangibly on all of the standards for the year because they're color-coded. It will contain a curated database of all her lab reports and her slides with the score, and it will contain a summary of all the readings she's done with the links, an excellent resource for her to take. It's beyond a portfolio because it's a place for them to meta-reflect on not only how they did, but a summary of all of their work, standards-based, activity-based, and reflecting on reading in one place. I'm also doing this in my chemistry class right now. We have done a quiz already in there, so we can go right now and see if people have done anything there. We can pull up Heather. Okay. You can see on the first 2 standards of the year, Heather got an 8 and an 8. She could do a second attempt if she'd like. If she did a second attempt and got a 10, Oh, she's got comment only set for me. That's fine with me. And for activities, you see we've done 4 activities. In chemistry, she has not added her scores to those. That's up to her. Like I said, I'm keeping track of it on the back end. When I update grades, all they're going to get is a bulk activity grade, a bulk reading grade, and a bulk standards grade. That's it. If they want to keep track of things on the back end throughout the quarter, they need to do it. So it's adding ownership, but it's simplifying the ownership process for them. So I'm a huge fan of using these metacognitive spaces like this for students to curate work and to really simplify things, pushing ownership in a realistic way that I've created that's efficient for them.